Jen Beecham is with us here today. How are you doing?
Hello, Toby. I'm good. Very good. Thank you.
Now, can you tell me just a little bit about this new COVID antibody test thing you've got?
Right. Okay. So, COVID is a virus, and the virus, if I showed you an apple, the virus is spherical and it has spikes that come out of the apple like a key to a cell. And then we have immunity that we form, and I'm going to use this as a T cell.
Yeah.
It learns to recognize part of this virus, maybe the spike, maybe the skin called the nucleocapsid. And then let's say you defeat the virus and this cell is in your body as a memory cell. Then years later, you get another virus, something close to the previous one, but a little different. Maybe the key now has mutated and it's a key like this.
Yeah.
Okay? So that T cell comes around and it sees this new virus, and maybe it recognizes that other key, maybe it only recognizes the skin. But if it recognizes the virus, it alerts the other cells.
Yeah.
Sends them a chemical signal. I hope you don't mind these little props. But when it sends the signal, other immune cells come in. So they've tested, we've had SARS-1, 2002. We've had MERS, that's Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, that's 2012. And now COVID-19, 2020-21. So three coronaviruses, but they're still detecting the T cells from 11 years ago in the MERS people. And those T cells are cross-reacting to COVID-19. So that T cell immunity is still doing this, bringing the other immune cells in to fight the COVID-19. So that means about a third of the human population has had a coronavirus infection, not COVID-19, but some previous one. About a third of the human population, they have the T cells. And if we give them some of that protein in their skin, in a skin test, they'll make a little red area, what's called indurated skin, thickened skin. And that red thickened skin is proof that those T cells are still drawing in the immunity against now COVID-19. What that means is they're probably not going to get real sick. They may get like a common cold from it.
Yeah.
So what is the benefit of the skin test? I'll tell you. This time around, nobody talked about a skin test. Did you ever hear anybody say we're going to test you for T cells?
Nope.
No, and the reason is because nobody developed the test. We can't make it the moment the pandemic hits. It's too late. We have to make it before the pandemic. So a T cell skin test would be a test that uses the protein of the virus, either the spike, which may be different, or these proteins don't change much. You see these proteins on the virus, the nucleocapsid, the capsule, inside is the RNA,
Yeah.
But this stuff doesn't change. It's 99% the same or 100% the same. So the T cells that learn to recognize that, it looks the same, even with the COVID-19. So they're present to do their job. So a skin test would tell you who's still got those T cells working, and they're going to have at worst a common cold. So it means I don't need to close all the industries and send everybody home from school. If I can just test them for T cell immunity, I'll know who doesn't have any risk. That's what this is about.
But is it fair to allow those people to be out and to lock down the people that don't have immunity? Because I think it's been argued that we should lock up the old people and let the young live free.
Right.
But the counter to that is that the virus would still find its way to the old people anyway.
It's an excellent question, and my answer is that's not my job. I'm not a government official. I'm not a policeman. I'm not a public health official. Who am I? I'm a doctor who retired and wonders, where's the skin test?
Yeah.
You see, it's just another tool. How it's used is up to you and your government and your public official, not to me. What's up to me is this part. Where's the skin test? Because if we have it, however you want to use it, Mr. Public or Mr. Government Official or Mr. Public Health or anybody in the world, I promise you this, there'll be good uses for it and people's lives will be saved and the economies won't be crushed.
Yeah.
So if we had it, but we didn't have it, Toby, why didn't we have it? Can you tell me? Nobody can tell me.
I don't think I know.
Okay, and nobody knows. Here's the reason I think it happened. Just like now today, the COVID-19 is winding down and nobody wants to talk COVID-19 anymore. And they don't want to spend any money, despite spending huge amounts of money on this pandemic. They don't want to spend any money on developing this skin test. Why? They don't see the need for it. I hope you do. I hope you see that it could be a tremendous benefit, but we'll never have it if the attitude is always, oh, that's over.
That's true.
You see, that's the reason I'm trying to raise alert about it.
And in terms of when you actually get the skin test, what's it like? Where do all the things go and how's it actually done?
Okay, so there's been skin tests for 200 years. Let me tell you a little story since we're talking skin tests. Back in the 1700s, they had smallpox. I'm sure you had it in your country. We had it here.
Yeah.
And people understood, as did Dr. Jenner, who discovered vaccines. You know where the word vaccine comes from, Toby?
I did know this. Is that some sort of Latin word that means something or?
Close enough. It has to do with the French word for cow, which is vache.
Oh, yeah.
And cow milkmaids in France got cowpox. They got an infection in their hands from milking the cows because the cows had cowpox, and it didn't make the cows sick, but it protected the milkmaids from smallpox. It was a natural experiment that the humans discovered and took in, and that's how we became conscious of vaccination. It comes from vache, the word for cow. And so now, even in 1700, parents trying to protect their children from smallpox would see someone with smallpox, take a sewing needle, get some of that liquid and scratch it on the arm of their children, hoping, and that was the live virus. I'm not recommending that, but you see, they wanted to give a little bit of the disease so that the child wouldn't die from a lot of the disease. So that's what vaccines are about. So we've known about vaccines for years, only we still don't seem to have the details figured out when it comes to helping our society over these pandemics.
Yeah. And because we've been in this pandemic for over a year now, and it's maybe a bit too late to start thinking about skin tests, are you kind of more focusing on future pandemics for this idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to focus on it. Hey, this is almost over. Let's talk soccer. Why don't we talk football? You know, they want to talk anything but this, but I promise you, if we don't have somebody, and you can't leave it to the medical people. Let me tell you a story. In 1973, that's 48 years ago, there was an article published, a research study published in the Journal of Hygiene in London, and it said this. Researcher took some volunteers and skin tested them against influenza A virus. And some tested positive and some tested negative. And then the researcher said to the volunteers, can I squirt influenza virus in your nose, please? And of course, the volunteers said, oh, yes, that's fine. Well, of the people who tested positive for the T-cell immunity against influenza A, even though they got influenza A virus squirted into their nose, none of those people got sick. And yet, of the people who had a negative skin test for influenza A, a third of them getting the squirt in their nose got sick. They got the flu. They got influenza A. So it worked enough in 1973 to suggest we should carry on. And yet, if you can explain to me why the medical establishment hasn't carried on with it, I'd be happy to know.
I have no idea, again.
Yeah. That's the problem. We spend trillions in America on this pandemic, trillions.
Yeah.
And yet, I can promise you it would be peanuts comparatively to have a skin test ready. And the problem is you need it ready when the pandemic arrives. It's not time to fix it up after it's here.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be able to add a few proteins to the test to make it for the new mutation, but that's about all you're going to be able to tweak before you need to use it.
Yeah. And do you know if the COVID vaccines we have now would actually be effective against future coronavirus pandemics? So in other words, if somebody gets the vaccine today, if there's another pandemic, they might be safe.
Yeah, that's exactly why we need the skin test. Because the question is, does the T cell do this when you give it the new virus protein to look at? If it does, then it's acting as a memory T cell that'll call in the troops to protect them. So to find out if it'll do that, you have to test the skin. It's the simplest way. You can test the blood. There's a blood test. But it's very expensive, takes a long time. Nobody's doing it. You haven't heard of that one either, and that's available today. See?
Yeah.
So we need the skin test. It would be cheap if you could mass produce it. It would be maybe €1 per person.
Yeah.
Imagine
absolutely.
that compared to how much did you spend in Scotland on this epidemic?
Well, kind of more UK-wide our spending is. I don't know the figures, but it'll be billions. But a lot of it's been wasted, quite publicly wasted.
Yeah. Well, the problem is we can't wait to think about this till the next one arrives. And, people are saying, I don't know how true it is, that maybe this one had some help arriving, you see? And if that's true, maybe the next one will have a little help arriving. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've just got a feeling that governments will just completely forget about this pandemic, and when the next one comes along, they'll be as just unprepared as they were with this one.
Well, it'll be different politicians. Once this one has their nose in the trough long enough, they're gone. And it'll be a whole bunch that are lucky to remember, which way is the next election. That's what they're worried about. Can they get to the rally and get some money?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where are we able to check out all your skin test information and find out all we need to know?
If you go to the website Indiegogo.com, that's INDIE-GOGO.com, and then search, they have a search function, search for Immunity Passport. Everything's there, explains all about it, nice video, and you can donate, or actually the way it's set up, you get a share of ownership in the patent license, and then it could be swapped for a share in the company if it turns out we end up making the vaccine. So it has an investment potential to it, no guarantees involved.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been a very interesting chat.
I'm glad to do it. Thanks very much.